Hello, I am Luis Rodriguez, an Associate Professor of Finance at ITESO, the Jesuit University of Guadalajara, in Mexico. In this opportunity, I will talk about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Let's start with some background. In September 2000, the member countries of the United Nations approved the Millennium Declaration, an agenda that contained 8 objectives, including reducing poverty levels, and established 2015 as the deadline for its fulfillment. These goals were known as the Millennium Development Goals. As their deadline approached, a new agenda began to be discussed, called the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This action plan was much more ambitious than the previous one. The Open Working Group of the United Nations General Assembly approved a proposal in July 2014 that contained 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets, which would replace the Millennium Development Goals. This proposal was a result of an intense process of public consultations at international level. The new goals and targets took effect on January 1st, 2016, and have guided the global action since that moment. The Sustainable Development Goals constitute a change in vision. For the first time, the eradication of poverty is considered as an essential requirement for sustainable development in its 3 dimensions: economic, social, and environmental. The Sustainable Development Goals are conceptualized as integrated and indivisible, since they contribute to the improvement of the present and future generations. An important issue to be noticed is that the United Nations defines sustainable development as meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. In other words, sustainable development requires that all people of any generation have the same opportunities at all stages of life. This necessarily requires respect for human rights and care for the environment. The Sustainable Development Goals are based on the premise that in the development of countries, no one is left behind. That is, social inclusion as an essential requirement to achieve sustainable development will constitute a change of vision compared to previous agendas. As an example, let's analyze one goal and some of its respective targets to get a sense on how they are built and organized. For instance, goal number 12, responsible consumption and production. One question that might arise is why we need this? Why this is important? The answer is that if we follow the current patterns of consumption and production, we risk not only the sustainability of the planet, but our own survival. Data from the United Nations Development Program indicate that 1.3 billion of tons of food are wasted every year, while almost 2 billion people go hungry or malnourished. Another 2 billion people are obese or overweight. Moreover, only 3% of the disposable water is drinkable, and we use it so fast that nature cannot keep up. This indicates that there is something very wrong with our consumption and production patterns, and we need to change them. To ensure that people's actions contribute towards the goal, this goal is associated to several targets. Here we have some selected targets aligned with goal number 12. The first one, by 2030, halve per capita global food waste at the retail and consumer levels, and reduce food losses along production and supply chains, including post-harvest losses. The next one, by 2030, substantially reduce waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. Another one, encourage companies, especially large and transnational companies, to adopt sustainable practices and to integrate sustainability information into their reporting cycle. And the last one, promote public procurement practices that are sustainable in accordance with national policies and priorities. You can repeat this brief analysis with other goals that you might find interesting. Just remember, if you want to contribute towards sustainability, make sure that your actions, your company actions, are aligned with the targets and goals provided by the United Nations. Sustainable Development Goals and their targets are a great example of what humanity can accomplish when we debate and agree in the necessity of change to improve the quality of life of the present and future generations, minding the health of our common home, planet Earth. I invite you to get acquainted with the goals and their targets. There are wonderful resources at the United Nations website. Talk about them, adopt them, discuss it with your friends and classmates. Become the new agent of change the world needs.